My friends, fellow travelers on the path, I welcome you this day not as a teacher to students, but as one seeker to another, into a consideration of the infinite. We come together not to learn something new, but to remember something ancient and true that has been waiting within the very core of our being. There is a question that has echoed through the ages, a plea that has risen from the heart of humanity since time began. How do I get my prayers answered? How do I receive from God? We have been taught to ask, to beg, to petition the heavens, as if God were a distant monarch, and we, hopeful subjects with our scrolls of requests. But what if I were to tell you that the very act of asking is what perpetuates the sense of separation? What if the doorway to the divine is not found in the outstretched hand of petition, but in the quiet, open palm of reception? The spiritual horizon does not open through our striving, but in our yielding. It is not about reaching up, but about letting in. Today, we shall turn the entire spiritual universe inside out. We will move from the outer court of the temple, where the noise of asking and begging resides, and step behind the veil into the Holy of Holies, where the only sound is the silent, radiant outpouring of grace. We are going to explore what happens in the soul, in your life and in your very consciousness when you stop asking and start reviving from God. And so, my friends, you see it is not a matter of changing God's mind, but of altering our own stance. We shift from being seekers to being finders, from being beggars at the gate to being conscious dwellers in the kingdom. The prayer is no longer, "Give me," but a silent, powerful, "I am here. Thy will is my will, let thy river flow." And when that happens, you do not receive a thing, you are met by the thing itself. You are not given peace, you become the very embodiment of peace. You do not find God, you realize you have never for a single moment been outside of God. The outer world of effect will have no choice but to conform to this inner, spiritual fact. Supply will appear where there seemed to be lack. Harmony will manifest where there was discord. This is not magic, it is the divine law of adjustment, responding to a consciousness that has finally come into alignment with its source. Now, the meditation begins. The practice starts now, in the silence of your own heart. Do not ask for a sign, be the evidence. Do not seek a demonstration, become the embodiment of the Christ. If this message has resonated within you, if you feel the stirring of that inner confirmation, I invite you to express it. Like this video, not for me, but as a symbol that the truth has found a home in you. In the comments below, share the number 714, a number symbolizing the spiritual perfection and rest that comes when human striving ceases and divine activity takes over. And subscribe, that we may continue this sacred journey together as one spiritual family, awakening to the infinite grace that we are. Go in peace, knowing that you are already in the midst of your good. Go and simply receive. Of course, here is the expansion of your first keynote, continuing directly from the introduction's flow and maintaining the Goldsmith style. Indeed, to even begin this journey, we must first confront the foundational, and perhaps most persistent, illusion of the human experience, the belief in a God separate from ourselves. This is the great veil that hangs over consciousness, the unexamined assumption that God is a being, a personage, somewhere in the heavens, and we are here, on earth, separated by an almost infinite distance. This is the God we have been taught to approach with our lists of requests, the God we praise when a request is seemingly granted and question when it is not. This entire relationship, my friends, is built upon a misperception, a cosmic misunderstanding of the very nature of the I Am. Consider this: if God is infinite, where could a place outside of infinity exist? If God is omnipresent, filling all space, in what location could we possibly stand that is apart from this divine presence? The very act of asking presupposes a giver and a receiver, a subject and an object, a here and a there. It reinforces the very sense of duality that is the root of our sense of lack, our fear, and our loneliness. We are like fish in the ocean, begging the ocean for water, completely unaware that we are already immersed in the very substance we seek. Our pleading does not change the ocean. It only reveals our ignorance of our true state of being. This illusion of a separate God is the cornerstone of the world's suffering. It creates a theology of transaction where we attempt to barter with the divine, offering good behavior, fervent prayers, or religious rituals in exchange for blessings. We view life as a series of events to be manipulated by a distant deity, and when events do not unfold according to our limited human vision, we are cast into despair, believing God has forsaken us. This is the painful roller coaster of a life lived in a state of separation, where God is perceived as sometimes approving and sometimes disapproving, sometimes close and sometimes far. But the message of the Christ, the truth at the heart of all mystical revelation, is the announcement of oneness. I and my Father are one. This is not a statement of ego, but the ultimate spiritual fact of your being. The Father is not a person, but the divine principle of your life, the very source and substance of your consciousness. You do not have a life separate from God that you then offer back to God. Your life is the expression, the emanation, the activity of God. There is only one I am, and the I am that you are is the very I am of universal being. When you say, I am, you are uttering the name of God not as an individual, but as an individualization of the One. Therefore, the entire foundation of asking must crumble, for who is asking whom? When you turn within, in the silence of your own being, and you realize that the very awareness with which you are seeking is itself the presence you seek, the paradigm shatters. You are not a soul trying to reach God. You are the activity of God expressing as soul. The consciousness that reads these words, that feels the yearning for something more. That very consciousness is the divine ground of all being. To stop asking, then, is not an act of resignation, but the beginning of the highest wisdom. It is the recognition that you are already standing in the middle of the treasure house, and your task is not to beg for a coin, but to open your eyes to the infinite wealth that constitutes your very own being. And so, with the crumbling of that old foundation, with the dissolving of the Godod there, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of a new and entirely different relationship with the infinite. This is not a new set of rules, but a new orientation of consciousness. It is the shift from prayer as petition to prayer as receptivity. For if God is the very substance of our being, the very life animating us, then what could we possibly need to ask for? Our entire practice must turn from one of acquisition to one of acknowledgement, from an act of speaking to a state of listening. You see, the prayer of asking is an activity of the mind. It is the human sense of self, the I that feels separate and lacking, projecting its desires and its solutions onto the screen of infinity. It is the child telling the parent what it wants for Christmas, completely unaware that the parent already knows its needs and has prepared gifts beyond the child's limited imagination. Our lists of requests are like that. They are born from a finite perception of a problem and a finite vision of the solution. We ask for a specific amount of money, for a particular person to return, for one specific job. We are asking for the forms we have predetermined will make us happy, all the while blind to the omnipresent, formless substance from which all harmonious forms must naturally appear. True prayer, then, is not an activity of the mind, but a stillness of the soul. It is the conscious, deliberate quieting of the clamoring personal sense, the fears, the wants, the plans, the memories. It is the setting aside of that entire mental universe so that something deeper, something infinitely more profound, can make itself known. This is the prayer of receptivity. It is not a doing, but an undoing. It is the opening of an inner window so that the light, which has always been shining, may finally illuminate the room. In this sacred silence, you are not broadcasting your list of desires. You are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the divine harmony. You are not speaking to God. You are making yourself available for God to speak to you. As you, this is the meaning of be still and know that I am God. The stillness is the receptacle. It is the empty cup waiting to be filled. In this state, you are not thinking about God, you are yielding to the actual presence of God. You are not seeking a solution, you are abiding in the source of all solutions. And from this state of conscious union, something miraculous occurs. The very intelligence that formed the universe begins to flow into your awareness as your own intelligence, revealing steps and ideas you could never have concocted. The infinite love that binds all creation begins to flow through you as compassion, understanding, and peace, healing your relationships. The boundless substance of all form begins to manifest as your daily experience, supplying what is needed in ways more natural and harmonious than any you could have demanded. You are no longer a beggar trying to build a life. You are a transparency through which life itself is being lived. The prayer is no longer an event, but a state of being, a continuous, open receptivity to the infinite outpouring of the now. This state of open receptivity, this conscious abiding in the now, reveals the greatest obstacle we face on the path. It is not a lack of faith, nor is it the severity of our outer challenges. The barrier is far more subtle and insidious, for it is the very instrument we have always relied upon, the analytical, planning, and striving human mind itself. This is the barrier of the asking mind, the mind that has been conditioned to seek, to achieve, and to acquire cannot comprehend a state of grace that is already fully and freely given. It interprets the silence of receptivity as passivity, and the absence of striving as a lack of progress. It feels, in this sacred stillness, a profound sense of uselessness, and so it rushes in once again with its plans, its worries, and its endless stream of petitions, effectively closing the very window it had just begun to open. The asking mind is a mind of lack. Its entire existence is predicated on the belief that something is missing, that a condition is not yet met, that a solution is out there and must be captured. This consciousness of lack is a powerful creative force, but it creates only in its own image. It perpetuates the experience of not having by reinforcing the feeling of not having. When you approach God with a sense of need, you are not praying, you are affirming your separation from your own good. You are, in effect, telling the infinite that it is not here, that it is withholding, that it must be persuaded or appeased. This is the ultimate spiritual contradiction, and it is why so many prayers seem to go unanswered. It is not that God denies the request, but that the consciousness of lack from which the request is born cannot receive the consciousness of abundance, which is the only answer. This mind is a whirlpool of past and future. It is ceaselessly replaying the tapes of past mistakes, hurts, and failures, or it is anxiously projecting itself into a future where it hopes conditions will be better. But God, the divine activity, is eternally in the now. It is the I am, not the I was or the I will be. The asking mind, lost in time, is therefore perpetually missing the point of contact, which is only ever this present moment. It is like a man standing in a downpour, holding an upside-down cup and begging for rain, all the while getting drenched by the very substance he seeks. His begging is what prevents him from simply turning his cup right side up and receiving. To truly receive, this mind must be stilled, not suppressed, not battled, but gently witnessed and allowed to settle like silt in a jar of muddy water. The struggle is not to empty the mind by force, but to shift the focus of your attention from the mind's chatter to a deeper, quieter place of awareness within you. You must learn to observe the thoughts of lack and fear without becoming them, to see the frantic plans arise without feeling compelled to enact them. In this witnessing, a great separation occurs. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which the thoughts appear. And it is in this field of pure awareness, this silent I am, that the divine impulse is felt. It is here and only here, when the asking has completely ceased, that the still, small voice can finally be heard, not as a sound, but as a palpable living presence, guiding, sustaining, and fulfilling you from within. This state of open receptivity, this conscious abiding in the now, reveals the greatest obstacle we face on the path. It is not a lack of faith, nor is it the severity of our outer challenges. The barrier is far more subtle and insidious, for it is the very instrument we have always relied upon, the analytical, planning, and striving human mind itself. This is the barrier of the asking mind, the mind that has been conditioned to seek, to achieve, and to acquire, cannot comprehend a state of grace that is already fully and freely given. It interprets the silence of receptivity as passivity and the absence of striving as a lack of progress. It feels, in this sacred stillness, a profound sense of uselessness, and so it rushes in once again with its plans, its worries, and its endless stream of petitions, effectively closing the very window it had just begun to open. The asking mind is a mind of lack. Its entire existence is predicated on the belief that something is missing, that a condition is not yet met, that a solution is out there and must be captured. This consciousness of lack is a powerful creative force, but it creates only in its own image. It perpetuates the experience of not having by reinforcing the feeling of not having. When you approach God with a sense of need, you are not praying. You are affirming your separation from your own good. You are, in effect, telling the infinite that it is not here, that it is withholding, that it must be persuaded or appeased. This is the ultimate spiritual contradiction, and it is why so many prayers seem to go unanswered. It is not that God denies the request, but that the consciousness of lack, from which the request is born, cannot receive the consciousness of abundance, which is the only answer. This mind is a whirlpool of past and future. It is ceaselessly replaying the tapes of past mistakes, hurts, and failures, or it is anxiously projecting itself into a future where it hopes conditions will be better. But God, the divine activity, is eternally in the now. It is the I am, not the I was or the I will be. The asking mind, lost in time, is therefore perpetually missing the point of contact, which is only ever this present moment. It is like a man standing in a downpour, holding an upside-down cup and begging for rain, all the while getting drenched by the very substance he seeks. His begging is what prevents him from simply turning his cup right side up and receiving. To truly receive, this mind must be stilled, not suppressed, not battled, but gently witnessed and allowed to settle like silt in a jar of muddy water. The struggle is not to empty the mind by force, but to shift the focus of your attention from the mind's chatter to a deeper, quieter place of awareness within you. You must learn to observe the thoughts of lack and fear without becoming them, to see the frantic plans arise without feeling compelled to enact them. In this witnessing, a great separation occurs. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which the thoughts appear. And it is in this field of pure awareness, this silent I am, that the divine impulse is felt. It is here and only here, when the asking has completely ceased, that the still, small voice can finally be heard, not as a sound, but as a palpable, living presence guiding, sustaining, and fulfilling you from within. This profound inner shift, from being lost in the turbulence of thought to resting as the silent awareness that witnesses it, marks the most critical transition on the spiritual path. It is the moment you cease being a seeker and become a beholder. The entire dynamic of your life changes, not because the outer conditions have necessarily altered, but because the center of your identity has relocated. You are no longer the actor on the stage, desperately trying to remember his lines and hit his marks, fraught with anxiety about the audience's reaction. You have moved backstage, and then even further, into the audience itself, and now you are watching the play of form from a place of profound and undisturbed peace. This is the state of the beholder. The seeker is forever looking for something, for God, for peace, for supply, for health. The seeker is defined by a sense of absence, and his journey is one of movement, effort, and pursuit. But the beholder has found not a thing, but a standpoint. He has found his true self, which is this very awareness, this conscious, living presence that was there before the seeking began, and will be there after all objects of seeking have come and gone. The beholder does not look for God in a scripture, in a teacher, or in a distant heaven. The beholder realizes that the very capacity to look, the very consciousness that is engaging in the search, is itself the divine presence. Therefore, the beholder rests. He rests in the certainty of his own being. He beholds the world not as a place from which to extract his good, but as the ever-unfolding expression of the one mind. From this standpoint, while your relationship with the world of effect is completely transformed, the beholder does not deny the appearance of a problem, but he understands it to be just that, an appearance, a temporary form cast by a deeper, invisible cause in consciousness, where the seeker would rush to fight the appearance, to fix it, to plead with God to remove it. The beholder turns within. He turns to the only place where cause resides, his own state of awareness. He settles back into the stillness, re-establishing his identity as the beholder, the witness, the open receptacle for grace. He does not pray hours about the problem. He allows the divine presence to fill his consciousness until the problem. In this light of pure awareness, the appearance, which was born from the darkness of a separated, asking mind, begins to lose its substance and its power. It is not attacked, it is outshone. This is the secret of spiritual demonstration. It is never the manipulation of form. It is always the adjustment of consciousness to its own divine source. The beholder understands that his only responsibility is to maintain this inner posture of receptivity, this vigilant abiding in the I am. He knows that the infinite intelligence that governs the galaxies is more than capable of adjusting the details of his personal life into harmony. Without his frantic, of human intervention, he does not need to know the how or the when. His faith is not that God will act, but that God is acting in, through. And as this very awareness, right here and now, his work is to behold this truth, to rest in this reality, and to let the outer scene arrange itself accordingly. He lives from the finished kingdom, beholding the harmony that already is, even before the evidence has matured in the world of form. This conscious abiding as the beholder, this steadfast refusal to be drawn back into the drama of the seeking, asking mind, is what establishes you in a new and permanent point of orientation. You are no longer living from the periphery of your being, reacting to the endless stimuli of the outer world. You have at last come home. You are now living from the divine center. This center is not a physical location in the body, though it may be felt as a profound peace in the heart. It is the very core of your identity, the still point of the turning world, the I am that exists prior to all personal history, preference, and fear. It is the point of uninterrupted contact with the infinite, where the individual consciousness and the universal consciousness are known to be one. To live from this center is to experience a fundamental inversion of your entire life. Whereas before, you looked to the outer world, to people, to circumstances, to bank statements, to doctors. For your confirmation, your safety, and your supply, you now understand these to be effects, not causes. You now turn within to this divine center as the sole source and cause of all that appears in your experience. You do not go within to get something for the outer life. You go within to realize that the outer life is the fleeting shadow, and the inner life is the substance and the reality. From this center, you are not a person trying to become spiritual. You are the spiritual being, the Christ, consciously expressing as this human form. Your life ceases to be a struggle and becomes a gentle, yet powerful emanation. The practical consequence of this is that you begin to draw your resources from an entirely different well. When a challenge arises, your first impulse is no longer to panic or to strategize from the limited human mind. Your first impulse is to become still, to retreat to this divine center, and to re-establish the conscious awareness of your oneness with the Father? You wait, you listen, you do not ask for a solution, you abide in the presence of the solution itself, and from that silence an impulse arises. It may be an intuition, a spontaneous thought, a feeling of peace that allows you to take a step you had not seen before. This is the divine activity, the river of life flowing from within. It is God, expressing as your intelligence, your wisdom, and your activity. You are not living your life for God. God is living your life as you. This is the secret of effortless action and true non-attachment. You perform your duties in the world, but you are no longer the actor. You are the instrument through which the infinite is playing its melody. You are the transparency for the divine to appear as form and function. Because your sense of self is anchored in the unchanging center, you are not tossed about by the praise or blame of the world. Success and failure become merely different notes in the same symphony, neither of which can add to or subtract from the fullness of your true being. Your supply is no longer tied to a job or a person. It is recognized as the infinite substance of this divine center, forever expressing itself in the forms necessary for the fulfillment of your purpose. You live from the inside out, and the world, in its own time and in its own way, has no choice but to reflect the harmony and wholeness you have first known within. And so, as we come to rest in this divine center, as we learn to live from the inside out, a great and universal law of being comes into play. This is not a law that can be invoked or manipulated by the human will, but one that operates with the flawless precision of a spiritual principle. It is the law by which the outer world of form and experience, which we call effect, must inevitably conform to the inner world of consciousness, which is cause. When your consciousness is anchored in the truth of your oneness with the Source, when you are no longer a seeker but a beholder, no longer an asker but a receiver, the outer scene has no choice but to undergo a profound adjustment. The outer world adjusts to inner grace. This is the true meaning of demonstration in the spiritual life. It is not a matter of forcing a specific, preconceived outcome through mental power or positive thinking. That would simply be the old asking mind dressed in new clothes, still attempting to manipulate God and the universe to serve its personal will. True spiritual demonstration is a state of surrender so complete that the personal sense of I gets out of the way and allows the divine pattern of harmony to manifest naturally in whatever form intelligence deems best. You are not demonstrating a new car or a specific relationship. You are demonstrating the omnipresence of God as your reality, and the car or the harmonious relationship becomes the incidental, yet inevitable, evidence of that inner fact. Think of your consciousness as a mold, and the substance of the universe as a liquid, formless metal. For most of your life, that mold has been shaped by the beliefs of the asking mind. Beliefs in lack, fear, separation, and limitation. The world has poured itself into that mold, and you have experienced a life of solidified limitation. But when, through this practice of receptivity, you abide in the divine center, your consciousness, the mold, is utterly transformed. It is no longer shaped by fear, but by the conscious awareness of infinite love. It is no longer defined by lack, but by the felt sense of omnipresent substance. The universal life, which is always ready to pour itself forth, now has a new mold to fill. It must now express itself as harmony, as supply, as peace, because that is the new shape of your consciousness. The outer world adjusts, not because you have wrestled with it, but because you have released the inner constriction that was holding the discordant form in place. This is why your only work is here, in the within. Your only responsibility is to maintain your stance as the beholder, to remain faithfully anchored in the truth that you are one with the Father, and that all that the Father has is yours, here and now. You do not need to manage the effects. You do not need to worry about the how. The infinite creative principle that designs the galaxies and guides the seasons is more than capable of arranging the details of your human experience into a pattern of breathtaking and effortless harmony. When a challenge appears to persist in your world, do not focus on changing the appearance. That is like trying to repaint a shadow. Instead, turn on the light of your Christ awareness. Turn back to the divine center and re-establish the conscious connection. As you do, the mold is purified, and the shadow must disappear, replaced by a form that bears witness to the light that now shines from within you.